Grandma, it's time for dinner. Thank you, William. I said this and devoured the raw eggplant placed in front of me. I hadn't eaten anything since the morning of this day, so whether it was raw or whatever didn't matter. If I could survive this day, that was enough. There's another one, so I'll go get it. My grandson William said this and jogged to the kitchen. Then he took out an eggplant from the vegetable compartment and placed it on the plate again. At that moment, my husband Kevin, who had been on a business trip alone, returned home. Ah, Grandpa's back! Welcome home! It's not night yet, is it? Were you surprised? I wanted to see everyone so badly, I came back on an early morning bus. But William, that's great. Is it an offering? No, this is just Grandma's usual meal. What? Following William, Kevin entered my room. Chloe, what are you eating? He froze instantly at the sight of me stuffing my face with raw eggplant. Then, in a panic, he rushed over and hugged me tightly. Kevin, is it really you? Of course, Chloe. How could you get so thin? While confused, Kevin gently stroked my back, which had become emaciated. Kevin, I. My lost emotions surged back, and tears flooded from my eyes like a deluge. I am a housewife nearing 60. This is a story from when I was 55. I have an older husband, Kevin, by 2 years, and a son, Stephen. We were a love marriage. Kevin's company was one of my former company's clients, and Kevin was the salesperson in charge. At that time, my job mainly involved menial tasks and serving coffee to visitors and male employees. So I knew Kevin by face and name, but we hardly ever spoke. Our relationship changed about half a year after I joined the company. Kevin, who visited for business as usual, approached me during lunch break one day. Would you like to have lunch together? I was so surprised by the sudden invitation that I was speechless for a while. I'm sorry for the suddenness. It was too abrupt, wasn't it? As Kevin apologized, looking embarrassed, I hurriedly apologized too. I'm sorry, I didn't expect you to speak to me. Please let me join you for lunch. I still vividly remember how happy Kevin looked at that time, even more than 30 years later. At the same time, I, who had never been approached by a man before, can't forget how happy I was, almost wanting to jump for joy. After being invited to lunch several times, we began dating on weekends, and on Christmas night that year, we started our relationship. A year later, on Christmas, Kevin proposed, and we became husband and wife. After getting married, I soon became pregnant with our son, Stephen. Then Kevin said, Chloe, I want to buy a house so you can raise our child with peace of mind. He suggested buying a newly built house. I was thrilled about the dream of owning our home, but I was also worried whether our family, both not working, could handle the mortgage. When I expressed this to Kevin, he said, the thought of having a home to return to where Chloe and Steven are waiting gives me the strength to work harder, even if it means more business trips and solo assignments. And 6 months later, we bought the house we currently live in with a 35-year mortgage. Since then, Kevin has spent half of the year on business trips. Every few years, he would go on solo assignments that lasted up to 2 years. Our days were filled with very little time spent together as a couple, but thanks to Kevin's regular phone calls, I rarely felt anxious or lonely. And the same was true for Steven. No matter how tired he was, Kevin always made time to talk on the phone with Steven. Sometimes Kevin would fall asleep during these calls, but Steven never got angry. Instead, I wonder if Dad will catch a cold. How can I wake him up? He always showed concern. It seemed Stephen was simply happy that Kevin cared enough to call. Blessed with a family-oriented husband and a kind-hearted son, my married life was going smoothly. The change in our peaceful life began when Stephen said, I have someone I want you to meet," and brought home his fiancée, Scarlett. Scarlett was a year younger than Stephen and worked at the same company as him. My first impression of her was that she was calm and responsible, but when she smiled, she gave off a gentle and calm impression, which I think Stephen was drawn to as well. Not long after, the two of them got married and started living in an apartment close to our home, and a year later, our grandson William was born. Scarlett left her job upon having William, becoming a housewife like me. Stephen, now the sole breadwinner, increased his business trips and solo assignments like Kevin, working hard for the future of his family. Scarlett, too, strove to meet Stephen's efforts by managing the household and child rearing on her own. However, William was a baby who cried a lot at night, and Scarlett often talked about how childcare was a constant battle with sleepiness and fatigue, especially when Stephen was away on solo assignments. Since Stephen had been a baby who slept well, I honestly couldn't understand Scarlett's struggles. So at that time, all I could do was to say, "It must be tough," thinking preschool would make things easier without taking her struggles too seriously. But even after starting preschool, William was so frail that he would miss half a month due to colds. With the repetition of household chores, child rearing, and caregiving, Scarlett was utterly exhausted. Stephen began to feel increasingly anxious about leaving Scarlett and the frail William behind to go on solo assignments. One day, when William was 5, Stephen received a call informing him that he was to go on a 2-year solo assignment again. William is still frail, and Scarlett, she always looks so tired. I'm worried. Dad's often away for work too. I was thinking, maybe we could live together. What do you think? I don't mind at all, but what about Scarlett? Wouldn't she be reluctant to live with me? Scarlett said she's fine with it, as long as you and Dad don't mind. Could you talk to Dad about it later? That night, when I mentioned living together to Kevin, that's a relief. To be honest, I've been a bit worried about leaving you alone. Remember when you were hospitalized before? Indeed, about half a year earlier, I had been hospitalized due to food poisoning. I was admitted for a day due to dehydration for IV fluids, and since then, Kevin became quite worried. Scarlett is capable, so I can leave her to manage things if anything happens. Thus, without any hesitation or discomfort, we decided to live together. A month after finalizing the living arrangement, my son's family canceled their apartment lease and moved into our house. We're looking forward to living with you. Likewise, this is Scarlett's home now too, so don't hesitate to ask for anything. Thank you so much. Despite saying there were no hard feelings, the atmosphere between Scarlett and me, who had only really spent time together during Christmas, was still somewhat awkward. However, thanks to Kevin and Stephen acting as intermediaries, it felt like we were able to grasp each other's comfort levels. After spending a few days together as a family, Kevin and Stephen departed for their usual 2-year solo assignments. Now, it was truly a household of just the three of us. Scarlett and I decided on a division of labor. I took care of cleaning, laundry, and dishwashing. Scarlett was in charge of preparing meals, shopping, and generally looking after William. Of course, we agreed that whoever was free would flexibly handle other miscellaneous chores or step in when the other was too busy. But Scarlett was such a capable wife that she would even finish the chores I was responsible for. I had some free time, so I went ahead and finished up. Even when William was sick in bed with a fever, she never neglected her own tasks. Having lived almost like a single person since Stephen started working and moved out, living with 3 people means household chores will triple. I need to work hard. I had mentally prepared myself. But once we started living together, Scarlett completed most of the chores, allowing me to continue living my leisurely life as before. Scarlett, you're truly wonderful. Thank you for choosing Stephen. It's nothing. We're living together after all. It's only natural. At this moment, I felt deeply grateful to Scarlett from the bottom of my heart, considering myself very fortunate. However, this happiness did not last long. About 3.5 months into our life together, Scarlett's demeanor began to change drastically. During meals and conversations, she was constantly distracted by her mobile phone, unable to settle down. Moreover, the shopping trips with William that used to fill our weekends disappeared altogether, and she began to go out shopping alone for hours on end. Additionally, when household chores were delayed or when unexpected changes took up her time, she would say in a stern voice, "I don't have time for this. Please do it later." Her abrupt change in demeanor became increasingly noticeable. Confused by Scarlett's drastic transformation, I pondered over the possible reasons behind it. However, no matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't come up with any explanation, other than perhaps I had overburdened her with chores, causing her stress. So I decided to express my honest feelings to Scarlett. "Scarlett, I'm sorry for leaving too much of the housework to you up till now. From now on, I'll take on more chores so you can have some rest. How about that?" I intended to convey my concern, but Scarlett's response was, oh, I'm fine, really. Don't worry about me." It was an indifferently dry answer. Wondering if I said something wrong, I continued to reach out to Scarlett. "Aren't you overdoing it? If there's anything, please talk to me." But our conversations dwindled rapidly, and eventually I was completely ignored. Furthermore, Scarlett took over all household chores, insisting, "Don't touch anything." Her reason being, "If you touch anything, it all becomes old-fashioned and bothersome." It was unreasonable, ignoring my meals and laundry completely. When I attempted to fend for myself, "Didn't I tell you not to touch anything?" Scarlett snapped, barring me from using the kitchen. Eventually, I resorted to buying food from supermarkets or grocery stores to eat alone. As for laundry, I either secretly washed it during Scarlett's absence and dried it in my room, or went to a laundromat. Even interacting or speaking with William required Scarlett's permission. The relationship hardly felt like family anymore. Gradually wearing down my spirit, a conversation seemed the only way to change the situation, but Scarlett either ignored me or responded with fury. Still, determined to address the issue, I confronted Scarlett with a firmer tone than usual. "Scarlett, we can't understand each other if we stay silent. Please, let's talk more." However, this action led to an unexpected turn of events. "Be quiet. If I'm telling you to shut up, then shut up," Scarlett said before striking my cheek with a forceful slap. Though I braced for verbal abuse or shouting, I never expected to be hit, and stood there, too shocked to react. Scarlett was visibly surprised by her own action, but as a result, I fell silent. This incident further deteriorated Scarlett's behavior towards me. What caused Scarlett to change so drastically? The reason was Scarlett's affair. Scarlett's lover was a married man from her college days. They reconnected about a year before we started living together at a club reunion. Bonding over their shared statuses as married individuals, they exchanged contact information under the guise of being confidants. Exhausted from caring for William and solo parenting, Scarlett quickly became engrossed in her exchanges with the lover, and their relationship soon turned romantic. While living in the apartment, Scarlett neglected household duties to go on dates with her lover, leaving the home in disarray, but she could easily excuse it by claiming, "William fell sick again, and I couldn't manage the housework." Stephen, frequently away on business or solo assignments, had no way of knowing the true state of the household and took Scarlett's words at face value. The affair took a turn shortly after we began living together. Initially, if I play a part of the good wife while living together, I can continue the affair as before, Scarlett thought. Thus, she actively took on my share of the chores, trying to maintain the facade of a dutiful wife. However, suddenly taking on all the chores she had been neglecting for the affair proved to be too much. Scarlett found herself increasingly overwhelmed by household responsibilities, making it difficult to find time for her lover. As a result, the lover's attitude cooled, and he began refusing her invitations for dates, and she was taking out her frustration and irritation on me because of it. Unaware of what was happening, I reflected on my own actions and continued searching for ways to reach out to Scarlett, inadvertently continuing to offer misguided words of concern. To Scarlett, struggling with her affair, my actions were nothing but unnecessary interference. No doubt. Leave me alone, Scarlett was thinking, desiring to be left alone by Scarlett and wanting to engage with her myself. Our mismatching desires likely fueled her irritation further. Ultimately, I pushed myself into a corner where I ended up being slapped. Following this incident, Scarlett began to harass me under the guise of discipline. You're the reason it's so hard to throw out the frozen food trash. So as punishment, I'm banning you from shopping and going out. Scarlett said this and hid my wallet and shoes somewhere. Then, as a substitute for meals, she started giving me leftover raw vegetables from the vegetable drawer and William's leftovers. She even banned me from taking baths. But because of that, my body odor became severe. Then, Scarlett, wearing a mask and gloves exaggeratedly, would suddenly enter my room and say, "Stinks," before pushing me into the bathroom, instructing me to wash myself in a bathtub filled with water, without any hot water because the gas was turned off. She handed me a dirty towel, akin to a rag, and sent me back to my room with my hair still wet. Fortunately, it wasn't winter, so I didn't catch a cold, but my body was completely chilled. This cold bathing became a daily routine until Scarlett was satisfied. I've reached my limit. If this continues, I'll collapse. One day, feeling my life was in danger, I tried to contact Kevin and Stephen behind Scarlett's back. Unfortunately, I was caught, and my mobile phone was confiscated. Moreover, as part of her discipline, I was banned from leaving my room. Scarlett changed the password on my mobile phone, making it impossible for me to call for help. She even responded to the messages from Kevin and Stephen, pretending to be me. However, she couldn't impersonate me during phone calls. She would listen intently to my conversations to ensure nothing was amiss. How are things with Scarlett? Are you two getting along? Of course, Scarlett is truly wonderful, so don't worry about me. Suppressing the urge to cry out, "Help me," I continued to deceive Kevin and Stephen. As this way of life repeated, I lost the sense of deceiving Kevin and Stephen and the desire to be rescued. I was solely focused on surviving each day. Eventually, the situation is my fault. It's my responsibility that Scarlett is disciplining me. I began to believe. 3 months of living like this passed. Even when told Kevin and Stephen were returning, I felt nothing. So, they're coming back. Just don't do or say anything unnecessary. Show your face and then stay in your room. Yes, understood. It's really troublesome. I'll go shopping for dinner now. Scarlett left to shop for dinner before Kevin and Stephen's evening return. I stayed in my room as instructed. I'm hungry. Looking at the clock, it was nearly 12 p.m. Having not received breakfast as usual, I waited for William to bring me food. Grandma, it's time for dinner. Thank you, William. I said this and devoured the raw eggplant placed before me. All I could taste was bitterness and astringency. Still, it was much better than nothing. There's another one, so I'll go get it. William said this and jogged to the kitchen. Then he took out another eggplant from the vegetable drawer and placed it on the plate again. Just then, Kevin returned. Ah, Grandpa's back! Welcome home! It's not night yet, is it? Were you surprised? I wanted to see everyone so badly. I came back on an early morning bus. But William, that's great. Is it an offering? An offering? No, this is just Grandma's usual meal. What? What are you talking about? Kevin followed William to my room and hesitantly opened the door. Chloe? What are you eating? The sight of me gobbling down raw eggplant froze Kevin's expression instantly. He rushed over to me in a panic and hugged me tightly. Kevin? Is it really you? Of course, Chloe. How did you get so thin? While confused, Kevin gently stroked my emaciated back. Kevin, I... My lost emotions surged back, and tears flooded from my eyes like a deluge. Through my sobs, I told Kevin about Scarlett's discipline. Shocked by the inhumanity of it, Kevin was speechless. After hearing me out, there's no way that's acceptable. He was furious with Scarlett and vowed to take action. Then, turning to William nearby, listen, William, Grandpa is going to surprise Mom, so don't tell her I'm back, okay? Can you keep that secret? He said. A surprise? Okay, I won't tell Mom, William said before returning to the living room to continue watching TV. Meanwhile, Kevin stuffed all of his luggage into the closet and waited for Scarlett's return, phone in hand. Minutes later, Scarlett stormed in with heavy footsteps. After roughly placing the shopping bags in the kitchen and ignoring William, she rushed straight to my room. Ugh! Why aren't you replying? It's so irritating. She threw a cushion that was on the floor at me. It's all your fault. Why did you agree to live together? Normal people would refuse, right? You're so selfish. Take responsibility. I sat silently, enduring it as usual, knowing she would tire and leave the room eventually. But Scarlett was different that day. And to think I have to care for your husband and child for a week? I'm so fed up. Hey, they're your husband and child, aren't they? Do something about them, you useless thing. She picked up a nearby hanger and swung it down towards my head with force. I ducked down in terror, and the next moment, stop! Kevin burst out of the closet with a loud shout. Kevin? What? Why are you here? He rushed to my side and hugged me while glaring at Scarlett in a voice more stern than I'd ever heard. Scarlett, what is the meaning of this? He asked Scarlett. It's just, I was a bit irritated. Scarlett awkwardly hid the hanger behind her back. Being irritated means you can throw things? Scarlett looked away, unable to answer Kevin's direct question. Well, I mean, it slipped. It was an accident. It just flew by itself. Not like I aimed or anything. So basically, faced with Scarlett's desperate excuses, Kevin sighed in disbelief. And then he called the police right there. When the police arrived, Kevin submitted the video of the discipline he had secretly recorded as evidence. As a result, Scarlett was arrested on the spot for suspected domestic violence. Scarlett quietly got into the police car after her arrest, but she glanced back for a moment, her eyes filled with hatred and bloodshot, directed at me. I felt true fear seeing that face, reminiscent of a demon's. How did someone so kind end up like this? At that time, unaware of the affair, my mind was full of questions and regrets. Once the police car was out of sight, Kevin let out a big sigh and then called someone. Hello? Steven? Where are you now? The person on the phone was Steven. Now? I'm just about to transfer. What's up? Scarlett was just arrested for domestic violence. Use a taxi or whatever, but come back as soon as you can. What? Domestic violence? Arrested? I don't understand. Stephen's voice, heard through the phone, was clearly confused. Anyone would be under such circumstances. To Stephen, Kevin said, I'll explain everything once you're back. Just hurry home. Minutes later, Stephen returned home, looking frantic. Scarlett? Hey, Scarlett? Mom? Where's Scarlett? Seemingly panicking, Stephen called out for Scarlett while searching the house. Kevin, remaining calm, said to Stephen, Scarlett isn't here. Stephen, we need to have a family meeting, so please sit down. He guided Stephen to a chair in the living room. Then a family meeting with me, Kevin, and Stephen began. Kevin first explained the circumstances of Scarlett's arrest. The story was so appalling that Stephen had a look of disbelief. However, seeing my emaciated state, the disarray of the house, and the evidence video made Stephen accept the harsh reality. Is that true? Can it be? Scarlett did this to Mom? Staring at the mobile phone screen, Stephen was shocked and frozen. Kevin gently offered him a cup of coffee. How many minutes of silence passed? Stephen, looking at me, downed his now cold coffee in one gulp. Then, Mom, I'm sorry, I didn't notice you were suffering like this. He apologized to me. It's not your fault, Stephen. Please, lift your head. No, it is my fault. If only I had been more attentive about living together and Scarlett. Stephen said in a faint voice, trying to hold back tears. Stephen, dwelling on it won't help. Remember, you have William. We need to think about what to do next. William? Right, I have William. I need to be strong for William's sake. Afterward, Stephen decided to divorce Scarlett, and he chose to sue Scarlett for domestic violence against me. However, thinking Kevin's evidence video and my testimony might not be enough, Stephen and Kevin decided to check Scarlett's mobile phone. They discovered messages between her and an unknown man. Around the same time, Scarlett reportedly told the police during interrogation, the relationship with the person I was seeing before we started living together went sour as soon as we moved in together. I took out my frustration on Chloe, and I couldn't stop myself. Based on her statement, when Scarlett's phone and room were searched, photos with the affair partner and diaries detailing her emotional state were found. Stephen used these pieces of evidence to sue Scarlett for infidelity. He also sought a high amount in child support and division of assets after the divorce. He demanded compensation from the affair partner as well. The affair partner, in a panic, called Scarlett's phone. Stephen answered, Don't think you can break up a family and get away with it, and said. The man, flustered, replied, I have a family too. I want to settle this amicably. Stephen hung up without saying a word and ignored all subsequent calls. Stephen showed a firm stance by not engaging in any discussions without a lawyer. One day, through the lawyer, the affair partner, sued by his own wife, requested a reduction in the compensation. Stephen proudly refused, saying, That's irrelevant to me. It doesn't justify a reduction. Meanwhile, Kevin initiated a class action lawsuit for domestic violence against Scarlett with me and Stephen. Scarlett, now facing 3 lawsuits including one from the affair partner's wife, ended up with a prison sentence without parole. Burdened by her betrayals and cruel actions, no sympathy could be found for Scarlett, who betrayed Stephen and William with her heinous acts. I hope she would reflect on her foolishness while in prison. With the divorce finalized and Stephen becoming a single father, our cohabitation continued to support him. However, as my health was declining, Kevin took early retirement to care for me. Thanks to that, I fully recovered physically and mentally. Now, traveling with my grandson has become my greatest joy. Hey, let's take Dad with us on our next trip. A vacation! That sounds good. Now that Mom's better and I've quit my long-distance job, we should spend more time with William, Stephen said, hugging William. Their resemblance to a young Kevin warmed my heart. I hope Stephen finds someone wonderful again someday. I quietly continued to wish for his happiness.